problem. Good evening and welcome to the December 10th, 2012 regular meeting of the Waterloo Community School District Board of Education. I hereby call the meeting to order. Please now join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. Now please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And just a quick announcement, Sue Flynn will not be able to be with us tonight. She had something for her family, so she will not be able to attend, and we will get through the meeting here hopefully in pretty short order. I'll start off by reading the district's mission statement. The Waterloo Schools community commits to a comprehensive system of education and support to assure that each and every student will graduate prepared for college, career, and citizenship, as evidenced by continuing education, pursuing a career path, and contributing to a community. The first item on our agenda is the Harbaugh-Williams Promise Fund. It's the Brothers of Knowledge for College and Promise Fund. We have an update here, and Dennis Harbaugh, who is responsible for this and has spent, I think, about 6 years working on it, is here to give us an update, and Crystal Buzza is as well. So at this time, this is item A on our agenda, and it's for information only, but we'll ask that Dennis and Crystal come forward and give us a little bit of a background on, and also a status report on where things are. Crystal.
Thank you, Mr. Young. As you mentioned, we are glad to give you guys an update. This group of boys started when they were in second grade, and now they're in high school, so they're quickly growing up. And I'm glad to have Mr. Harbaugh with us. And so he's going to kind of tell you an overview of what the group has done, where they've gone, and then if you have questions, feel free to ask them.
Great. Well, it's great to be back. It's been a few years since I've had a chance to come back and visit with you folks. There's some new faces on the board, and since I was last here. So I appreciate the opportunity to give you all an update. Hopefully 3-4 weeks ago you received a packet that had what we call our 2012 class update in it. And maybe you had a chance to glance through that. That's a publication we send out to all of our donors, volunteers, mentors, anybody involved with the effort, and then decision makers like yourselves. And we'll try to make sure that you get a copy of that each year. We send it out in November of each year. And the next 3-4 years, you can follow us that way, and we'll make sure that you get a copy of that. Right off the bat, I want to extend a big thank you to the school district staff that have really been there for us the last 7 years. Starting back when Michelle Tiemeyer was here, she's continued to work with us as a volunteer on our board, and now with Crystal the last couple years, Ellen Vanderloo with helping us find mentors, and then Lindsay Jackson, the support staff person. And then I look back at the school district, in the schools, principals, vice principals, counselors. We have called on all of them at various times. And now as we've worked on the transition to high school, we've called on Ms. Bev Smith and Ms. Cora Turner, and they have been very helpful in helping us identify people in the schools that can be helpful to us in each of the high schools. So I'm sure you know this, but from an outside perspective, you have a very hardworking staff who really care about the students because they're busy, and they have responded and been supportive and helpful every time we've asked, every time. So thank you to them from all of us, our board, the students. I won't try to take too much of your time. Crystal has asked me just to tell you very briefly where we've been, where we are now, and where we're going. As she said, we started with this group of students, all male, all African American, in second grade at Cunningham School for Excellence. And we said to them and their families, if you graduate from high school in good standing, the community will raise the money for 2 years of college tuition at in-state university rates. And that was a very exciting time for the families. And when we started middle school, we started with 16 students, and I'm very happy to say, and quite proud to say actually, that as we enter high school now this last fall, all 16 of those students are still here in the Waterloo School District. They're attending school, and they're active participants in our Promise Fund effort. That has not been easy. There's been a tremendous amount of mobility, moving in and out of the district, different schools, semester to semester, out of the state, and some have been, we've had to suspend some because they weren't meeting our expectations temporarily, but they have worked their way back in, and they have made and said, we want to be a part of this. And so we're so happy that as we start high school down the final frontier here, that all 16 of those students are with us. Let's see, our board, just quick background, we have a very small board of 5 people, supplemented by volunteers, district staff as needed, and we ask for a lot from the community in terms of in-kind things. The publication you read, that update, the layout is donated in kind, the printing is donated in kind. We are not bashful about going out in the community and asking for support, because we really believe in these students and think the community should support them too. They deserve our support. And so the meals we provided, our parent nights, all provided in kind from churches and other people. So one of the unique things about this effort from the beginning, there's other things, I'm sure you're familiar with them in the Harlem Children's Zone, and even Des Moines has an effort going on somewhat similar to this. But they started with $1 million for tutoring for a group. We started with a big fat zero just flat out zero. And in a way, that's the way we wanted it, because when we went out to the community, we really wanted this to be a grassroots effort that demonstrated to these students that this community supports them. And so, as you can see from our fundraising efforts, we've had pretty good success. The community really has responded. We've raised a little shy of $300,000. Our goal is $321,000. So we can see the end in sight, and we're gonna get that done in the next couple years. So the community, that's the other thing I guess I can bring to you tonight. When we went out to the community, we got an incredibly strong message that this is the sort of thing they believe in. This is something they really do want every single student to be successful. And they're willing to put their money there. And this was not just a big donor kind of deal, heavy hitter kind of deal. We've raised money from the neighborhoods, from civic groups, individuals, you name it. You saw the list. So I guess that's the other message I bring, is that there's broad community support for academic success for all students, for sure. Let's see. One of the highlights I guess I'll share with you every year is when we visit college campuses. And we want to get them on a college campus so they know what it looks like, what it feels like, what it smells like, what it tastes like in the cafeteria, And so we've gone to all the 3 state universities, of course, but then the last 2 years we've gone to Wartburg and Drake, wanting to give them a small campus experience close to Waterloo, another small campus in a more urban environment in Des Moines, a little larger city, but not too far. And we'll continue to do that over the next 3-4 years. And the students every year say this is their highlight of their year. They love getting on campus. And we love getting them there. And we will help them now over the next few years with college applications, financial aid applications, all those tricky things that are just flat out tough for all of us to do. Mm-hmm. But we'll get them pointed in the right direction, connect them with groups in the community, and collaborate with others as we need to, as well as bring our board experience to that. And finally, just in terms of some of the things that are ongoing that we've been doing for the last 7 years now, next month, is once each semester we bring the students and all their families in for a meal at school, and then some programming that's relevant to their age and that things they're dealing with. In the last couple years have been the transition to high school. We had a sex education and pregnancy prevention focus on one meeting. We had a gang recruitment focus on another. We really do keep it very real. I mean, these are things these guys are dealing with every day. And it doesn't do anybody any good to act like they're not. Mm-hmm. And so we're very honest with each other. There's a lot of challenges out there for these young men, but each of them has such incredible potential. I just can't tell you what great young men these guys are. And all of them have challenges, and they all are just have incredible potential. And they know that we're with them every step of the way. And they get in trouble, we don't run and say, you can't participate. We work with them to try to get them back on track. And so it's good. We've developed some good, honest relationships. We have, in the middle school years, we did have to bring in some, we brought in 2 African-American counselors, males, to meet with them every week. On Wednesdays, we had volunteers transport them from various middle schools and get them to one school. And those were mandatory meetings. Very important to pull the group back together and get them focused. And now that we're moving into high school, we're again changing things. You know, one of the benefits of being a small board and a small group is we can move relatively quickly. And so now what we're doing in the high schools is we've identified an individual in each high school that meets once a week with each of the students in their high school. And then we meet as a large group once a month, getting them out in the community. This fall they've been to KBBG radio, and we're on the radio and toured the station. October they went to UNI and connected with the Black Male Leaders Union group there. We want to get them out again, having experiences they otherwise might not have. So that's just a snapshot. I could go on for hours. But anyway, I'm probably taking up too much of your time as it is, but if you have any questions or anything, I'll be glad. You know, we tend to work with them all the way through. We expect all of them to graduate from high school and get into an institution of higher education somehow, some way.
Mr. Harbaugh, I can't thank you enough for doing this, for coming up with a great idea in 2006, but also for your perseverance and your efforts. And I know there are a number of volunteers, and I appreciate what you said about thanking them, and also those in our school district as well. But you deserve a tremendous amount of credit for not just having a great idea, but seeing it through and being involved in that time. So thank you. We appreciate this. The more I get to know about this Promise Fund, the more I've just been impressed by it and so grateful for it. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And I wouldn't be doing my fundraising responsibility if I didn't ask those of you who have not joined the effort to join us, because it's a fun ride. It's a wild ride. It's like a roller coaster ride. But come along for the ride the next 4 years. It's going to be worth it.
During this time, you've got a $5,000 challenge grant from the McElroy Trust. So every dollar that's donated now for the next 6 months,
that's
up
correct.
to $5,000
For the next 6 months, dollar for dollar match up to $5,000. So if you're thinking about it all, or you're just hearing about it for the first time, and you want to do that, you can contact the Community Foundation here in Waterloo and just ask for the Harbaugh Williams Education Promise Fund. And you'll double your money.
Yes, double the impact.
I had the opportunity to hear the young men when they were on Dr. Sharon Clayton program, KBBG program. I don't know any of these young men, but listening to them, I was highly impressed. The ones who had made mistakes, they talked about they made mistakes and they were given another chance. Some they shared their grade point average, classes they were taking, what they plan to do when they graduate from high school. I was blown away just listening to these young men. And they had one of the adults there with them, and they were encouraging people in the community, if you know these young men, to stay in their lives and keep encouraging them. And I think that's really important in your program when you said you had an adult meeting with them once a week. You have to stay with them, because what they were sharing, one young man shared about being recruited into a gang. He had to fight that off. They talked about peer pressure. They are under a lot of stress, and they have to deal with a lot of things we don't even know about. But they stayed on track, and that was very impressive, just listening to them. If I had not been in my car, I would have gone down just to see their faces, but I was on my way to another place, so I was not able to see who they were, but just listening to them.
We'll bring them in someday, sometime, so you
We'd
can
like
meet
that,
them down the
yeah.
road. Yeah,
Has you or your board thought about, what's the future? I guess my general question is scalability, but you know, after this group, is there enough knowledge now or structure in place that another group could be addressed, or what are your thoughts on that?
We've been keeping track, obviously, of their academic progress every year since we started. I think there will come a time, a few years from now, where we can sit down with the school district and analyze what worked over those 12 years and or 10, 12 years and what didn't work, because we've had some things that didn't work as well. And then maybe look to see whether there might be a possibility to expand this within the Waterloo School District. You can't get a better idea of whether something will be successful or not other than what we've done here. I mean, it's right here. It's all been in the community with our kids. And I think it's definitely going to be worth, but it's going to take some time to sit down and analyze it and say, was this worth it? Was it successful? And you know, we're confident now, but we're not done now. We've got a long way to go. We've got a long road to go yet before we can sit down and look back, I think. I think we're a few years away from that probably. Okay. But I would hope that there will be something that comes from this experience that can help guide the district in the future. What that looks like, I would have no idea.
I guess on behalf of the board, we'd like to invite you whenever that time is right. We'd be very interested in hearing what you have, and they don't have to, you know, it doesn't have to be, well, whenever the time is right, but, you know, on the one side, the longer it goes, the more evidence you have. On the other side of the coin, the longer before others can potentially benefit. So whenever you think that point in time has come, why I think it would be great to do a deeper analysis.
Yeah, we'd welcome that.
Mr. Harbaugh, again, thank you.
Yes,
Goodness.
thank you very much.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Oh, we appreciate all you've done. All right, we have now come to the time when those who wish may speak publicly to the board. I would like to remind each speaker, whether you represent yourself or a group, that you have 3 minutes to speak during this portion of the meeting. Mrs. Andorfer will hold up a yellow card when you have 30 seconds left and a red card when your time has expired. I will ask at that time that you conclude your remarks immediately. Waterloo is a national leader in character counts, endeavoring at all times to promote and model the principles of trustworthiness, respect, responsibility, fairness, caring, and citizenship. Throughout our meeting, we commit ourselves to these principles. Also, at no time is it appropriate here to criticize the job performance of a specific employee because personnel matters are confidential. They must be handled through proper channels and not in a public forum. So at this time, I'd invite anybody who wishes to address the board to come forward. Please state your name and your address.
I'm Lorraine Atkins, and it's in regard to the Jewett School property. Last March, I sent a letter to Mr. Coughlin, and copies were to go to every board member. I don't know if they received them or not. I had spoke to him on the phone. I had many questions. He said to put them in writing, and they would get me an answer. I sent him a letter, called him a couple days later and apologized that I had mispronounced and misspelled his name. He told me at that time that he understood all my questions and that he would get me answers, but because of the reverter clause, it had to be turned over to the attorney. I don't know if any of you received this letter, but I never heard a thing back until finally in July, I received a copy of a letter that Mr. Foss had sent to the school board. Does not answer one single question that I had asked. And I have some copies here. If you didn't receive it, I hope you would look at these. I don't understand doing away with the reverter clause again now. We had someone that would have given $100,000 for that property, and it would have been put back on the tax roll. At this point, I don't know if they would still be interested in buying the remainder part that you did not remove the reverter clause from or not. But I think it would be worth having a try at it. We need to get it back on the tax base. We need to have something done with it. It's an eyesore down there. Many of the neighbors I know have complained about it. And I just wish that you would take another good look at all of these things before you do anything more. And possibly give somebody, like I said, I don't know if they would do anything more, if they would be willing to buy the remainder of the property that you have not given to them. I don't know. But I had a lot of these questions and not one of them were answered. If you would like these, I don't know if any of you got the letter, but I would appreciate it if you would take a look at them.
Okay, yeah.
I don't
we'll
know if
pass
I have
those-
enough copies here for everyone or not, but
Okay. We'll pass those around.
if you have any questions, I'd be willing to answer them. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Okay, is anybody else that wishes to address the board?
Hi, Doug Foss, 233 Doyle, Evansdale, Iowa. I'll be available for any questions you have,
Okay,
if you have any, when
Okay.
that comes up on the agenda.
gotcha.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Okay. Anyone else? Okay, if not, we're gonna move on. There's, Ms. Atkins, there's one item on the agenda right now. We'll get to that, and then we'll get to the issue regarding Jewett. So that'll be next on the agenda, after this. Okay. If there's no one else, we'll move on to the consent agenda, which tonight consists of the minutes of our last board meeting, which was on Monday, November 26, 2012. It also consists of personnel appointments and adjustments since our last board meeting. Also bills due up and payable between board meetings. And then finally, the election of a director for the Iowa Association of School Boards, and that is for an individual named Kevin Powell, and he is the only person running for the position. So it's just to cast our 15 votes for that, for the district representative on the Iowa Association of School Boards Council. Are there any items that board members wish to be removed from the consent agenda? Okay, I'll ask that Exhibit D, bills due and payable between board meetings on page 7, be removed. If there's nothing else, I'd ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of item D. Thank you. In a second.
Second.
Okay, in discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And the chair votes aye, motion carried. That takes us to Exhibit D on page 7. This is bills due and payable. And the recommended motion is that the Board of Education approve the bills due and payable and the bills paid between board meetings. You get that motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? And just by way of explanation, I will abstain from voting on this matter because as an attorney, I represent a client that's paid by one of the bills. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor of the
Well,
motion?
wait a minute.
Oh, sorry.
This is on the reverter clause, right?
No, this is just on the bills due and payable. Sorry. We'll get to
Oh, I'm
that
sorry,
right after
sorry.
this. Yes.
the bills, yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, if no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Opposed, nay, and the chair abstains. Motion carried. Now we're on to the Jewett reverter clause. This is on Exhibit F in our board packet on page 18. And I'll just give a little bit of background on this. And then also there are 4 members here from the Evansdale Economic Development Corporation. And in 2009, the district transferred the Jewett School property to the Evansdale Economic Development Corporation to turn it into a community center and event center for that site. And the board included a reverter clause which required that the property be improved for the use that it was designed to do. And the EEDC, I think, has worked very hard over the last 3 years to improve the property, to build, do fundraising for improvements in the building, and then also to build some residential lots to get things back on the tax roll, but also to utilize the building as well. A couple months ago, we'd been hearing regular updates from them. And then a couple of months ago, the members of the EEDC came to the Facilities Committee meeting. At our last meeting, it was just after Thanksgiving a couple weeks ago, to discuss the status of the project and also to give us an update. And it sounded like the reverter clause had been standing in the way of some things. We'll hear some more about it in a second. But standing in the way of some grant requests and proposals that were out there. So they requested that the last of the reverter clause be removed. And so the Facilities Committee met and thought it was worthwhile to bring to the board. So the recommended motion is that the Board of Education accept the recommendation of the Facility Committee and approve the request of the Evansdale Economic Development Corporation and authorize the deed on the remaining Jewett property without restriction of the reverter clause. Get that motion on the table?
So move.
Thank you. In a second.
Second.
Okay. And we've got 4 members of the EEDC here. Doug Foss, who's a former board member, and his wife Judy worked very hard on it, and then Ron and Mary Ketwig. And all 4 of them came to our Facilities Committee meeting a couple weeks ago and ask, I don't know, if there would be somebody that wishes to come forward and maybe give a little bit more of a status update, a background.
I'd like to pass this picture around. This is our first condo that is completely on the outside. Interior should be done or open by mid-late January. We have currently on that site, we've got about $350,000 invested right now. About 100,000 of it is literally buried in sewer and water and electric and things like that. What we're running into issues, the reason we're here tonight is because of that reverter clause, there are grants available out there. We early on took a look at quite a few of those, and it always came back to the fact because of the reverter clause, we did not have free and clear deed, and we just couldn't proceed any further, and also we couldn't borrow against the property either because of that issue. What we're planning to do, that's like I said, that's the first of 7 condos we're going to build, duplexes, I guess would be a better term. The proceeds from those will go directly back into the project to convert into an event/community center. The first proceeds we get will be asbestos removal, and then the east wing will be demolished. Then the center core, the library, the old office, and the old kitchen, we're going to, and the library, the gymnasium, I don't know if I mentioned that. We're going to maintain those and remodel those and get those up and running as fast as we can. We can get some meeting rooms in the old library. We can refurbish a gymnasium and rent that out for groups who are interested. We are using it to the extent we can now. We are using it for a community center. It has very limited use right now because it has electricity, but just in the center core, no plumbing, no heat. We've used it, the library, we let them use it for a book selling fundraising event. The Evansdale Police Department and I believe maybe the Black Hawk Sheriff have both been in there with their canine units for training. It's at no charge. We've had several fundraisers there successfully. So, and when people approach us about it, if it's a fit, we say, sure, go ahead and use it. Entertain any questions.
Doug, do you have the questions that Mrs. Atkin has?
I do not believe I do.
They're pretty simple questions. If you could just, I think you answered some of these at the facilities meeting, but just for the record, I think it would,
Okay.
or I can just ask them. The first one is, says when are they going to do something with the old buildings that has become a terrible eyesore, and it is a safety hazard as windows have been broken out and children could get in as well as others. Now, I was past there today, and there are windows broken out. All of them, as near as I could tell, have been taped or boarded up to prevent entry. But basically, could you just explain who's keeping an eye on that, and how are you responding to the safety issue, and then the longer range plans as far as which part of the building you're going to tear down and when?
Certainly. This gentleman right here, he keeps an eagle eye on the property. A window is broken, it's boarded up. We've had spray painting and graffiti, and Ron has gone up and cleaned that up to the best of his ability. It is mowed and maintained on a continuous basis. Sidewalks out front are shoveled when it snows, which I hope we don't see for a while. Any property, we want to keep it available to the public, so the play equipment's still there, and sometimes that's going to invite trouble once in a while, unfortunately. And Ron's up there probably at least once a day checking things out and making sure if a window is broken, we get it boarded up. To the best of our ability, we have denied access to people who aren't allowed in there. The doors are all locked. Like I said, we board up windows when they were broken. We don't want to just blanket refuse people the right to use that property because, you know, it's a nice green space, and like I said, it has playground equipment. Our long-term goals, I think I spoke to a few of them. The long-term goal, the south wing, we haven't decided yet, depends on the amount of fundraising, how things proceed. That will become part of the community/event center. We're looking at a remodel and or a demolish rebuild, kind of leaning towards rebuild just because of the way the wing was built. The entire west wings on the other side of the gymnasium will come down. We had years ago, well not years ago, 3-4 years ago, preliminary discussions with the YMCA and some other groups are interested if to rebuild that section, to use it for maybe a satellite location for the YMCA. We also kicked around the idea of a community storm shelter, you know, one of those tornado-proof areas with a generator that would, well, in the event of a ice storm comes along and knocks down all the power lines, we'd have a generator big enough to at least heat and light that whole facility, and we'd make that available to anybody in the community who needs it. Said those are long-range plans. I think they're feasible. It's going to take money, but we're getting there now.
Another question is, if you build one condo, the one, I guess that's pretty much built now, and do nothing with the old building, what happens then? And I think you indicated, and if you could publicly state it now, that a portion of that money would start to go in for asbestos removal. Is that the plan?
All of the proceeds from the sale go. Our first goal is to get the asbestos out of there because, well, you're all aware of how that can tie your hands with any kind of demolish and rebuild. So all the proceeds from the first one or two are going to go and get the asbestos out of there, and at the same time take down a good portion of the east wing. That's our immediate goal.
So for you, that are on the facilities committee, that was our main issue was actually what Mrs. Atkins is asking. What, you know, if we remove the reverter clause, what leverage do we have? And I guess legally at this point, really none maybe, but we're pretty close, I think, and with the public commitment here to actually use that and start to reduce our liability by taking proceeds from. And what's the selling price of that of the house? Have you established that yet?
Of the
duplex?
condos?
Yeah.
160, 180 range, somewhere in there.
Okay. So it's that's what, half the asbestos removal cost, something like that?
Well, it's just not 100% profit either,
No. Okay.
The material.
unfortunately.
All right. And then I guess the next question is answered. And then the last one is all proceeds should go into an escrow account until all obligations and criteria are fulfilled. Since being subdivided, this would protect the taxpayer's best interest. Maybe, Mr. Coffin, could you speak to what records or how you're monitoring this situation? Or either one of you, I don't care.
And I think
At this point, we are not.
the
You're not?
EEDC is a nonprofit, a 501c3, correct? And one thing I think is important is this: we're not deeding this to the Fosses or to the Ketwigs personally. It's just to the 501c3, and so that requirement comes with you've got annual tax forms that you've got to send out. I'm thinking of going blank on the IRS form that you have to give out, but all your records.
Yeah, we've
That you'd have to do every year. And so I think that's where all the funds are going, and that's where the property's going. Again, to the nonprofit, to the charitable entity, not to not to anybody individually.
Not individually, but I guess I was thinking last time we said we'd have access to those documents.
we can get them for you. If you're interested in looking at them, we can get them for you.
Well-
We have to file every year like any nonprofit does. So, I mean,
Sounds
so
good.
we can get 'em.
990. Yep. Yeah, and those are available publicly. Yeah.
Yeah, till we start really generating some revenues and some expenditures. It's a pretty simple process right now. It'll get much more complicated.
So you're waiting to sell the first one before you have any funds to begin a second one? Is that the deal?
Yes and no. We We could probably proceed with the second one, but just to make sure that we're proceeding properly, we're going to sell the first one.
And that's supposed to be finished when?
Mid-January, late January.
Okay.
We've had some interest already. I think as it got up and now it's, people can drive by and see it's a building, and once we get the interior done, get some people walking through it, I think it's going to be a fairly easy sell even in this economy.
How many duplexes do you plan on constructing?
7 altogether.
7.
5, I'm sorry. Well, what about the other side of the road? Yeah, and across the road we may do 2.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
When you say 160, that's for the duplex?
No, that's
Or
one side.
one side, okay.
That's did a
How-
lot of, for lack of a better term, market survey, and that's a market price.
How many square feet on one side?
1,900? 1,200.
12?
Attached garage with storage.
They look like very nice units.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah, that does look nice. But the building, I guess I would just encourage to keep an eye on that, and especially anything that's broken out where anybody could have access. Get that covered. Again, I didn't see any entry points, but
I think
longer it goes, the uglier it gets.
if someone does get in there, they're going to quickly realize it'd be a play area, I guess, but we have literally gutted that entire building. There's nothing left on the inside except for cement walls.
Looks like we have 2 issues here. One is the
Yeah, the first is a reverter clause, and next on the agenda is there's a little strip of land. We'll get to that a little
Okay.
bit. That's kind of been left over, but just to explain a few things, and Ms. Atkins, getting to your points as well. I think the priority from the school district was to be good stewards of taxpayer money, and also get the property back to its highest and best use, which in this case is residential property, to get it back on the tax rolls because it's not earning anything now. The interesting thing on school buildings is a lot of times they have a negative value to the school district if you've got to tear them down, or to the city for that matter, because of asbestos. And as you all know very well, the asbestos mitigation efforts cost a lot of money. So you've got a strange thing where you have a building that does have a positive value if it's being used. And in this case, using a building as a community center, you don't need to take out the asbestos. You can leave it in there. You can leave it in the windows and the molding around the windows and the floor and the ceiling. If something's being used, it's actually best just to leave it in place. But if you tear it down, you have to get rid of all that asbestos. And so the district ran into that, whereas the district doesn't want to go back to kind of the bad old days in the 60s and 70s and 80s where it got rid of properties that really became eyesores. We're still dealing with that. And so Francis Grout, there are plenty of others. But the district decided a few years ago to use the process of the reverter clause to ensure that that didn't happen again. The Francis Grout problem didn't happen again, that a building became an eyesore in great part because it had asbestos and couldn't be renovated. So it would just sit there and become dilapidated and tear down values in neighborhoods. And the reverter clause wanted to make sure that it encouraged people to fix up properties, get them back on the tax rolls, but didn't hamstring the school district or the community with an eyesore. And that process went through and worked, I think, with the old Lincoln building, that the district, somebody bought it with good intentions to make it a community center, but just couldn't make it work, and it came back to the district. But it cost the district several $100,000. So the building had a negative value to the district because all that asbestos had to be removed before the building could be torn down. And so what I think is in everybody's best interest is to get somebody into a building that wants to use it and wants to put it back on the tax rolls. And in this case, we've got a group that's put in $350,000 into doing that, in getting the property back on the tax rolls, and they are doing that. What we did not want the reverter clause to be is an impediment to you doing your work, being able to sell units to raise money to put back into the building, to tear down some parts of it, but to reuse other parts of the building. And that's what it's become. So I support getting rid of the reverter clause for many of the reasons you discussed, and that's really looking after taxpayers and looking after the community so that we can get these properties back on the tax rolls as quickly as possible. Because in this case, the EEDC has done what they said they were going to do, and they're doing that work right now, and I'm grateful to them for doing that. I know it's been an awful lot of work. It's volunteer work for you and the community. So.
I guess there's one other item I'd like to address. Mrs. Atkins mentioned the $100,000 potential value, and this, when we first put this out, it did go out through all the public notices, and there were no bids. I know there was a issue at the time where there was a question whether it was as widespread as it could have been. We did legally meet all the notifications. Since that time, we have tended to, because of that issue, tended to publicize it more, put a for sale sign on the sites that we've done since that time. So, but that's kind of past us at this point because of the agreement we did make at the time. And so, no one really bid that. We certainly would have looked at it had that been the case, but it didn't.
Yeah.
It didn't occur. So that's kind of the situation we are from a process standpoint.
And ma'am, we don't normally get into back and forth, but it looks like you've got a question, sir.
I wonder, do you usually sell something like that to someone with the reverter clause under the condition that they're only to raise money in order to purchase it? But like I said, this other gentleman would have purchased it, there would have been
Never came forward.
Okay,
Why-
who
why
was
does she
the other
keep talking
gentleman?
about this?
And why didn't he submit a bid when it was time to submit?
because I know myself, I had told board members and kept asking, what are you doing with the school building? And I was told all the time, we're not doing anything with it, we're just using it for storage. And that's what I continued to be told, as did these other people. And then I know usually it came out in the paper, not everybody gets the newspaper. There was never a headline in the paper or anything like that that we knew that it was being sold.
Okay.
And that's, and there again, they were allowed to sell everything up to the building.
Yeah, ma'am,
Our taxpayers' dollars.
I understand your concern with this. I'll respectfully disagree with the procedure we went through and noticing it. And there are an awful lot of people that will talk about wanting to buy something or wanting to buy your house or wanting to buy my house, but then when it actually came down to doing it, we can only go with people that submit something. And in this case, the EEDC, not only did they go through the proper channels to do it, but for the last 3 years they've been working on it and working on it very, very hard. And so I think that's a credit to your community. It's a benefit to your community to get these residences up and to get them going because they're actually doing what they said they would do. The point of the reverter clause was not for the school district to dictate every decision that they had to make. That was the point. If the district wanted to do that, it would have kept the building. But the point was we wanted to get the property back into good use. And that's what we've, I think what we've been doing. And again, we're very grateful to the EEDC for the work that they've done. It's been a lot of work over 3 years.
Mr. Fox said that it's being hit at the county and the police chief. I asked our police chief about it and he said no, because the way that building is and everything that they are not allowed to use. So the police chief and the county.
They use it for their...
They do not, they may have
Okay.
used it one time, but because of the building and everything.
Okay. Yeah.
Because all of they told me that they could not use it because they have to use a building that has lockers and things like that in it. And there are no lockers or anything else they cannot use it for these payment bills.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. Any further questions for the EEDC? Okay, thank you for your
Thank you.
work and for what you've been doing. Okay, any further discussion from the board? Okay, if not, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay, and the chair votes aye. Motion carried. The next item on the agenda is somewhat related to this. There's a small sliver of property near the Jewett site, and this is for the sale or disposal of real property. This was also discussed in our Facilities Committee meeting, and we'll get into this and get some background information, but first I'll get the motion on the floor. The recommended motion is that the board accept the recommendation of the Facilities Committee and approve the $1 offer to sell the lot at the corner of Payne Street and Brookside Avenue in Evansdale to the Evansdale Economic Development Corporation.
Move to approve.
Thank you. In a second.
Second.
Okay. And again, this property was listed for sale, I believe about a year and a half ago, and there were no offers made. It seemed like in some ways it was just overlooked at that time, but the adjacent property owner, I think, did not wish to buy the property. And understand now that the property's been essentially just kind of overgrown and weeds, and so this is just kind of cleaning up what was transferred to the EEDC. They offered to take it over and, most importantly, to maintain it. I think to clean it up, and then you're mowing around there right now anyways, correct? Okay. And so we discussed this at our Facilities Committee meeting and asked the school district employees if they had any objections, and they couldn't have
But the adjacent
said.
The
no
adjacent
objections.
property owner does not want it, is that correct?
Yeah.
Because that's the reason it wasn't included in the original
Correct.
Mhm.
parcel, is that, and I believe the issue at the time was the fence of the neighbor was actually on this property by a little
Okay,
bit.
that could be.
And so we didn't want to deal with that at all. And so we held it back, thinking that that owner would want that sliver of piece, or that sliver of property. As it turns out, nothing's happened in the last couple of years, and our maintenance guy, Marty Metcalf, at the facilities meeting said he really didn't want the responsibility of mowing or maintaining any of that. I would ask, though, again, it does reflect on the school district, at least at this point yet, because it's still part of the Jewett. And it doesn't look bad, but there are some garbage bags and a few things in that area that, if that could be cleaned up in a few hours, well, I think that would really help everything. So
Just FYI, we have no intent to do anything with that land but clean up the scrub trees and scrub brush
yeah,
and just turn it into a green space.
okay.
Okay, any questions or discussion from the board? Okay, if not, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. And the chair votes aye, motion carried. Now, let me just that concludes the action items on our agenda. We've got several people here with children at East High and Hoover, and they have Christmas concerts and chorus concerts tonight, so if you all need to leave, please feel free. That, again, concludes our action items. The next item on our agenda then is our superintendent's report. So, Dr. Norris.
It's a exceedingly brief report tonight, just to thank all of our staff at Pointer Elementary and at Kingsley Elementary for the love and care that they showed our children, to thank the community volunteers and the volunteers from other schools as well as from the building here that really did a yeoman's job in trying to prepare for such a tough situation, trying to help the families. I did call the pastor of the church in Evansdale and offered anything the school district could do on behalf of the board and superintendent, and the pastor said, you guys have done as much as you possibly could do, and I felt comforted by that. But just thank the Pointer staff and the Kingsley staff for helping our children deal with the tragedy, and our thoughts and prayers are certainly with the families of the girls.
Thank you, Dr. Norris. In information from board members, Lyle Schmitt.
No, I would just echo what Dr. Norris just said. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mike Kinchy.
Nothing at this time.
Okay. Andrea Sparks.
Nothing tonight.
Okay. Bernice Richard.
I want to wish all of our students and staff a great, safe winter break. enjoy.
Thank you. Shannon McNally, thank you. And just one thing for me to mention, our next board meeting, we will not have our regular board meeting on Christmas Eve night, fortunately. So our next board meeting, the second Monday of January, will be January 14th of 2013. And at that time, just to mention briefly, in the Facilities Committee meeting, we also met with the city regarding some water retention efforts, some drainage work that they're looking to do in the Devonshire neighborhood. And so they're, we talked about transferring or selling for $1 some of the property around Devonshire. There's a question as to how we go through that process, and we'll deal with it all in our January 14th meeting. If, though, we have to do something for the notice, we'll let everybody know beforehand. We
Sure,
may
that's
have to
fine.
have a 2-minute telephone meeting to do the notice, to publish that. But Andrea in particular, I'll let you know kind of what we're doing. Just wanted to give everybody a heads up. I don't know that we actually have anything. Yes, this would be just before Christmas break, but if we don't have to do it, we won't. So just to give everybody a heads up. With that, if there's nothing further, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Chair votes aye. Motion carried. We're adjourned. Thank you all. Thank you. Good. Get up.